Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to this impromptu, real quick. I had an opportunity to share earlier on the Black legislative agenda for 2021 here in the state of Maryland with other Black led organizing and advocacy policy organizations. And, I want to give some reflections on that. I'll also share a Facebook post that I posted yesterday where a young person, young African American family member of mine or adjacent family member of mine down in Alabama wanted to know if I was a Republican. And just want to have a conversation tonight to explain, my own politics when it comes to the vote, when it comes to electoral politics and just politics in general as it relates to Black folks. So for people who are watching, please like the video, share it, invite others in. I don't plan to be here long tonight, but I do want to, just get across a couple of key points. And so, yeah, go ahead and please like the video, share it, all of that good stuff, because I think this is going to be helpful to the conversation. Anyway, I'm here tonight because I need to explain to people who have been socialized into binary thinking, who have been socialized to accept the platter that we are given, to accept the food on the plate that is shoved over to us. And I'm here to say that, we don't have to accept that, family. Well, we don't have to accept that. And I wanted to share, I posted an article that was written by a young person, and you can tell people just read the headlines. They don't actually read the article. It says, "I'm young, I'm Black, and I'm not at all impressed with Obama." I didn't even put my own commentary on it. And the very first comment was from a very young person who was actually I grew up around his family down in Alabama, and they're like family. We grew up in a very small community and everything. And so he commented and said, "Man, you hate Democrats." He was like, "Are you a Republican?" Like he couldn't conceive, right, on why I hate Democrats. So let me explain. I did a lot of policy and advocacy work in the state of Ohio. I've been involved in politics and policy and advocacy and organizing work for almost 2 decades now. I went and visited the White House when Obama was president. I have done statewide work, meaning passing local state legislation in the state of Ohio, meaning that I had to interact with Ohio state legislators in both the House of Representatives for the state of Ohio and the Senate for the state of Ohio, and also interacting with different agencies in the state of Ohio and the governorship. So I'm coming to this conversation not necessarily, being green or not knowing what I'm talking about or not having done any work, as people usually say. All the people who complain, talking about they don't want to vote, they don't want to do this, they ain't doing no work. So let's knock all that out right now. Matter of fact, you can just Google me. You can Google Zakiya Sankara Jabbar. That's all you got to do. And you'll see my record and what I'm about. Today, I had an opportunity to participate in a Black legislative agenda pushed by Black organizing and advocacy groups here in the state of Maryland. For people who don't know, Maryland has the largest Black caucus in the United States of America. Democrats have a supermajority in the Maryland state legislature. Okay, I'm laying out all the facts right now. We have a Black Speaker of the Maryland House. She was promoted to that position last year in 2019, right? And this is her first legislative year, right? So that's a very powerful position because she gets to set the committee assignments. She gets to set the agenda. You feel me? Right? And so I'm saying all of that to say, here in the state of Maryland, and you all know Baltimore, we had the uprising around Freddie Gray, right? Here in the state of Maryland, we also have a law that protects police officers above and beyond any other public employee, right? It's called the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. Maryland is one of the few states that have something like that. The Law Enforcement Bill of Rights, giving extra rights to police officers. Advocates in Maryland have been pushing for police accountability and a specific repeal to the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights for years, with a supermajority of Democrats in the Maryland legislature. Let's talk about it, right? Now, we got the largest Black caucus in the nation. However, Maryland also, and this is all stuff you can look up on your own, right? Maryland also incarcerates Black people, Black men and women, at a higher percentage than Mississippi, than any other state in the nation. Now, these are statistics specifically directly impacting Black people where you have a Democratic supermajority. See, we don't talk about this when it's time to go out and vote and promote Black girl magic and Black folks saving the day. I am here to disrupt that narrative. Even before I got to Maryland, I could tell you the way that even though the Democrats don't control the state in Ohio, they control every major city in the state of Ohio. Democrats control every major city in the state of Ohio: Dayton, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, Akron, Toledo, every major city. And anytime you wanted to get something done specifically for Black people, even at the city level, you face the same kind of pushback and the same kind of benevolent, if you will, kind of anti-Black racism, where these people will laugh in your face. These people will say, "Oh, I'm so sorry." They'll come meet with the family after the police kill your damn kid, and they'll pray with you. They'll do all of these things. But when it's time to go and actually pass some legislation to stop these killer cops or to stop things that disproportionately impact us, suddenly they have no courage. Not only do they not have any courage, they don't do anything about it. And so for me, that's unacceptable. I'm not here to talk about Republicans. You want to know why I don't want to talk about Republicans? Because we don't vote for fucking Republicans. Black people vote for Democrats 9 times out of 10 times, no matter where you at in this country. No matter where you at in this country, we're voting 9 times out of 10 for Democrats. So I'm sorry that I don't understand the excitement when Democrats are elected from Black people in particular. One of the things that I have noticed over and over again is that there's been a socialization. And I found out on the LBS sponsored, the Maryland State Legislative agenda today. And one of the other advocates who was on there talking with us was a brother named Jonathan Hutto, who is a powerful brother activist, lives over in Prince George's County. He's been in the movement, maybe 30 years now. And just amazing brother. And one of the things that he pointed out on the call today that I thought was very interesting was that they have been dealing with, at least at the local level in Prince George's County. Let me tell y'all about Prince George's County. Prince George's County is known nationally as the wealthiest Black county in America, even outside of Atlanta. Democrats, not only Democrats, but Black Democrats have been controlling Prince George's County for a very long time. Yes, some of the most egregious cases of police brutality have happened under Black leadership of Black chief of police in Prince George's County. And one of the things the brother pointed out on that call was that we're not taught as Black people how to really understand and deal with politics outside of voting. He said he grew up in a household, and it was no slight to his parents or anybody in his family, but he grew up in a household where the deepest level of politics was going out to vote every 2 years, and the Democrats saying, just come in and check off this card and vote. There was no engagement outside of just showing up and voting on election day. And that's where we are in 2020. You have Black organizations who get millions of dollars from the Democratic Party and Democratic adjacent organizations funneled to them to lead us to slaughter, to continue to vote for the same people who ain't did shit the last 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, even longer than that, specifically for our community. How else can you explain in a state like Maryland that we can't even get the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights repealed? The other argument that came up is that they'll say, well, Democratic legislators say, well, we can't really push this issue because we have to keep as many seats as possible because we have a few quote unquote purple districts in some of these outlying counties, and we have to, really kind of massage the message to some of the conservatives. And you want to know what I said? I push back on that every single time. I said these so-called purple districts that you claim, that you can't really do law enforcement reform on or criminal justice reform on because Republicans will take the seat. Guess what? Republicans don't believe in 9 times out of 10 don't believe in reproductive justice either. But y'all push that shit, and y'all don't give a damn about the purple seats when it comes to that. A lot of times these white Republicans aren't keen to LGBTQ issues, but y'all push that shit. Y'all stand 10 toes down when it comes to abortion rights. Y'all stand 10 toes down when it comes to LGBTQ rights. That's all well and good. But the largest voting bloc, y'all can't stand 10 toes down for us. The largest voting bloc for Democrats of any group, ethnicity, any of that, is Black people, man. And y'all can't stand 10 toes down for the police continuing to kill and maim and destroy Black people. Not only that, when we look at what's happening in our schools, we can't even get a culturally relevant curriculum in majority Black counties in Maryland. It don't make sense, y'all. And at the end of the day, let's deal with the facts, is that the Democrats and the Republicans are two hegemonic parties. They're two hegemonic parties that are controlled by corporatism, controlled by the same money elites that we're told that's only about the Republicans. That's a lie, family. When you go back and look at who funded the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris campaign, it was Wall Street. Wall Street actually picked Joe Biden. They didn't even want Trump. So we have to start dealing with some of these, cognitive dissonance. And I think that it's time that we find a way to even hold Black people accountable in our community, especially elected officials who continue to do the same thing over and over again, who worry about being the first Black, they worry about being the first this and the first that, but then it doesn't mean anything when it comes to the community. And I kept, this quote came to mind from Amos Wilson. I encourage everybody, if you're not familiar with Dr. Amos Wilson, please do yourself a favor and learn about who our brother ancestor is. He has a bunch of different books out there. His magnum opus is called Blueprint for Black Power. And to me, that's the roadmap of the future. He predicted a lot of things that we're talking about now. And when we were talking about on this call earlier today, with Maryland having the largest Black caucus in the nation, yet Black outcomes continue to sink, right? When it comes to criminal justice, we incarcerate the highest percentage of Black people, and we make up 30% of the population in the state of Maryland. This is a quote directly from Amos Wilson that really describes what we're seeing in 2021. The quote says, "It's very typical of bourgeois rule to get the average individual and the masses to believe that their own individual advancement represents the advancement of the group. We live vicariously through these people's success while we starve on the streets as we go unconsolidated and unemployed. And we're to believe that the advancement of a few of us represents the advancement for the rest of us. But let's check this fantasy against reality. And when we can see a direct relationship between the number of Black elected officials and the suffering of the masses of African Americans. Family, we got to deal with that. We got to deal with it. And to me, that's the only way forward. Now, like I said on the call earlier today, I don't have all the answers alone individually, but I'm down to organize and get with other like-minded Black people who want to see the masses of us win. I'm down to figure out a way to do this in a way that's as least harmful, because I don't want to, continue a cycle of harm, even though that's my knee-jerk reaction is shit. We got to deal with these traitors in our communities. At the end of the day, they're traitors. How then do we do it in a way that we deal with them? We can primary them, go through all of those different kind of things. And I'm an advocate for that. But what I'm not an advocate for, and this was a charge on the call today, because we had a wonderful sister elected official who is one of the few elected officials who actually represents her constituents, who comes from a family and a lineage of Black Baltimoreans and Black Marylanders who stood up for the people in the community. State Senator Jill P. Carter, shout out to the People's Champ. She was the only elected official that joined the advocates today on the call. And one of the things, that she mentioned is that we have to support champions in our community through donations, through making sure that we're voting, through making sure that we're doing the right things to support them. However, at the same time, I do think it's incumbent upon community members and organizers who are committed to justice and righteousness and committed to rooting out anti-Black racism, that we have to figure out a way to deal with the traitors in our community, because the traitors, unfortunately, are much more powerful than the actual people's champions. One of the other things that she mentioned is that if we can't get police reform in this next legislative session, then we will probably never be able to get it. And what does that say? Even though we have, when I say a supermajority, be clear, a supermajority means we have a veto-proof Democratic controlled House and Senate in the state of Maryland. A veto-proof. I believe it's that way in California. I also believe it's that way in New York. But when you look at the conditions of Black people, even in California and New York, what do you come up with? But Democrats control everything. Now, we do in Maryland have a Republican governor, quote unquote, that's considered a middle of the road, or whatever these names that they give these people. He's not a Trump supporter, I guess, is the type of Republican governor that we have. However, he does repeal progressive policies when it comes to Black people and other kind of progressive policies. He will veto, any kind of progressive policies, and then it has to go back to the legislature to be veto proof. And so we're waiting now to see what this next legislative session will do with regard to funding for education, which the governor vetoed. It was a landmark legislation for the HBCUs, Morgan State University, Coppin State, here in the state of Maryland, or HBCUs. There was landmark funding that the Democrats did actually put in for that, and they deserve some credit for that. However, the governor did veto that bill, but it remains to be seen if they will come back and make sure that something like that is veto proof, meaning that they could override the governor's veto and it will become law. So these are the kind of conversations that I think we need to continue to have within the community, and really understand politics is about power. One of the things finally that I'll say that Senator Jill P. Carter pointed out, and again, it goes to white people exploiting our disunity, is that because the Black Caucus it really could have a deep amount of power in the state legislature, white people successfully divide and conquer. This is something that has been working for a very long time. And how they divide and conquer, and I don't know if people remember, if you watch the movie Selma, there was a scene where Lyndon B. Johnson, the president, offered Martin Luther King a cabinet position if he would just chill, right? He offered him a cabinet. Here, let me give you a cabinet position. You kind of calm down, pipe down a little bit. The problem is that kind of bargaining is what we deal with today. When the community turns around and we look around and we see, well, damn, we voted in Black such and such. We voted in this person, but goddamn, ain't nothing changed. Well, that's because you don't have a lot of MLK politicians or Malcolm X politicians. A lot of people have a price, and they've been sold off because they are seduced with the fact that they will have a upper middle class lifestyle. Let's just deal with it. It's real. A upper middle class lifestyle for them and their immediate family and their children to get into best schools and so people are making decisions based on their individual and family advancement and not the collective advancement. So when you have in Maryland, we have a House Speaker, the first Black House Speaker in history here. She has a chief of staff who is a gatekeeper who keeps out the Black voices who are saying this is what we want the agenda to be. House Speaker Adrian Hurd, this is what we want for the Black community, right? That is the kind of checks and balances that white power makes sure that they continue to have, even when we do have Black elected officials who are in so-called positions of power. They're still controlled by puppet strings. And so when we see that we have people in power who are controlled by puppet strings, then we have to be willing to say, oh, it's time for you to go. Because if you are still going to be controlled by white people, even though the majority of the people who live in your district who put you in that position are Black, then it's time for you to go. The problem is that we have been socialized to believe that the Black girl magic, the propaganda is strong. Woo, the first Black Speaker of the House. Yes, we got to support her. Oh my God. But when it's time to actually get down to the nitty gritty of the actual lawmaking and actually policy making, then things get a little bit more murky. You understand? So I'm asking us as a community to let's pipe down on the propaganda. Let's pipe down on the Black girl magic and Black boy magic or whoever else kind of magic just because a Negro is in a position. Let's pipe down on that, please. And let's pipe up on what's good for the masses of our people. Let's pipe up on actual policy. Let's pipe up on actual demands of these people when they get in these positions, because it can't be just that they're in the position and then we go back home and say, oh, okay, that's cool. Now we finished. No, politics is about power, right? No, it's not about, it can't be about a particular identity and then adjacent to power. Because if you're going to be in power and still push a white supremacist agenda, please tell me how that's helpful. I'm interested in knowing if you're a Black person and you're in a position of power, but you still push an anti-Black white supremacist agenda, explain how that's good for the masses of Black people. That's what I want us to start asking. These are questions, simple questions that I want us to start asking. So the question I posed to the group today, there was about 8 of us and we were from all around the state. I live in Montgomery County. There were people on from Prince George's County. There were people on from Baltimore. There were people on from all across the state of Maryland where Black people live, right? And I asked them, I said, if the Democrats come back into session in Maryland, the session starts January 12th. All the lawmaking that happens in Maryland happens between January and April of each year. If we come back on January 12th of 2021, right, and these MFers do not repeal the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights and any of the other priorities that we laid out on that call today, what are we prepared to do in response? That's what it's got to come down to, family. Because I made a clear distinction. What we can't do is the same thing over and over and expect a different result, because that is what Black people have been doing. We continue to vote in large numbers, and they got Black people shoveling down there in Georgia right now for Ossoff and Warnock, and neither one of these MFers have a Black agenda, but they running Black people to the polls. All these groups down there getting all this money from Democratic Party and people who support Democrats and all these other people. And trust me, there's plenty of billionaires that's funding that. And they got Black people running to the polls to go vote for them, but we're not voting for things that are specifically for us. That's a problem, because guess what? We're in a crisis. And we were in a crisis before COVID. Be clear, we were in a crisis before COVID. Black Marylanders make up 30% of the state. However, the COVID identified people who have been diagnosed with COVID and people who have died from COVID have been majority Black. And we only make up 30% of the state. When I talked about criminal justice, Black people make up the highest percentage of people incarcerated in this state, right? When it comes to the school to prison pipeline, Black children again break up an over-representation of children funneled from schools into the juvenile justice system, into the criminal justice system. No. Stop compromising, family. Stop compromising. Organize yourselves at the very local level, because I think it's a long time before we can do anything at the national level. Until we organize locally in our own backyards and in our own states, I don't understand black folks who want to divest from black men, but don't want to divest from the Democratic Party. I don't understand that. You know, I hear a lot about divesting on Twitter. There's a lot of divestors, but don't nobody want to divest from white power. Don't nobody want to divest from the Democratic Party. I got a problem with that. These are people who are not concerned about the masses of black people. And you should be ashamed of your damn self if you're not concerned about the masses of black people. When you think about homelessness, when you think about all of the things that's happening to black people, check yourself. So that's really all I wanted to say. I had to address that, why I hate the Democratic Party. Listen to it, man. These are facts. These are verifiable facts that people can go and research for themselves. If you live in a state that's controlled by Democrats, look around your community and tell me how black people doing. And don't talk to me about the Republicans. I've addressed that in the beginning of this live, okay? I'm not talking about Republicans because black people don't effing vote for Republicans. We vote 98% of the time. Black women vote 98% of the time for Democrats, and black people as a whole around 90 to 92% of the time for the Democrats. So why do we need to talk about the Republicans? I mean, we can, it's just not for this live. I'm happy to talk about the Republicans on another live, and I will address that. However, we're going to talk about Democrats, especially for people who live in states like Maryland, especially for people who live in states like New York, especially for people who live in states like California, right? If you live in a state with a super Democratic majority, but black people still on the bottom of everybody else, something wrong with that. And we need to reevaluate, at the very least, our relationship with the Democratic Party. Malcolm X has talked about this. Amos Wilson has talked. People have been talking about this for years. We have to make a decision as a community before it's too late, family, before it's too late, that we have to take control of the little bit of power that we have. No longer can we accept black faces on white supremacy. No longer can we accept that. The mayor of Chicago tried to suppress a video of a black woman being mistreated by the Chicago Police Department. Tell me how she's different from Rahm Emanuel. I want somebody to explain how Lori Lightfoot is different from Rahm Emanuel and what he did with Laquan McDonald. I really want to understand that, right? Because at the end of the day, again, the Democratic Party, the same as the Republican Party, is a hegemonic institution, meaning that it is controlled by the white and wealthy. Deal with it. I know that people only think that Republicans are all about the wealthy, but the Democrats are too. And I'm listen, family, I'm saying things you can go and research on your own. I'm saying things that literally just get up and look around your fucking community, right? Wherever you live. These are things that you can research on your own, family. So that is why I hate the Democratic Party, is because they use us and abuse us, and we don't get anything for our loyalty. Again, putting cherry picking black faces in certain positions of power is not the same as leveraging the kind of power that the community actually needs to improve the material conditions for the masses of us. Period. So no, Lori Lightfoot is no different than Rahm Emanuel. She's a black face on white supremacy, and I take no issue with saying that. People can get mad at me all they want to. They got black folks down there in Georgia now serving them up on the fucking platter to vote for these two Democratic senators, and neither one of them have a black agenda. Neither one of them supports reparations. It's time out for that, family. So no, I don't support neither one of them. However, I do support Nina Turner. However, I do support Senator Jill P. Carter here in the state of Maryland. There are outliers. There are outliers who have to caucus with the Democratic Party because they need access to the party to actually win sometimes. But if black people would organize themselves, especially in states where we have a higher percentage of numbers, in cities where we still have a higher percentage of numbers, if we could organize ourselves as a bloc to divest from the Democratic Party, right, and use our power to vote for an independent candidate or some other kind of candidate who is specifically talking about the things that are impactful to Black people, I think that it's time for us to do that at the local level. We can exert some power when it comes to that. And I think that you see that with in Baltimore with a state senator like Jill Carter, again, who comes from a legacy of Black power raising Black folks. She was not endorsed by the Maryland Democratic Party, but she won because she had the people on her side. You see what I'm saying? Nina Turner. Oh, Lord, let me talk about this real quick before I get off of here. The Ohio Democratic Party, I'm here to tell you, is as racist and anti-Black as the Republican Party in the state of Ohio. Y'all got to deal with this, Black people. Deal with it. They are. I lived it. I lived it. Remember at the top of this, I told you I worked in the Ohio Senate as a policy advocate, not as a staffer. I worked with different politicians in the Ohio House, in the Ohio Senate. I worked around the entire state. And I can tell you that the way that the Ohio Democratic Party treats Black people who actually want to represent the interests of their people, they are scapegoated. They are taken, they take them off of these little coveted positions that they give them on committees and all of this other kind of stuff that they use as tools with other Black folks who fall for it. Listen, they're not going to support Nina's run for the Ohio House District in Ohio. So it's going to have to be a grassroots campaign, and she's going to need support from everybody who believes in Black autonomy from around this country. You know, people need to donate to her campaign to add some voice for real people in the legislature. That's if you still believe in voting and all of that. So I'm talking to people who still are trying to engage with this system. I do think that there's a space for people who are tired of the system, people who are not engaging in the system. But for those who are going to continue to engage in the system, I'm asking you to engage in a way that is strategic. It is not strategic for you to continue to vote for people who are endorsed by the Democratic Party. 9 times out of 10, if they're endorsed by the Democratic Party, they ain't getting ready to do shit for your Black ass. And I want to end the video on that. Thank you all for listening. Please like and subscribe to the channel and share this video. Thank you very much.